Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
This is a bit of an animal.
Good evening and welcome back to Bit of an Animal, the South African Rugby Union podcast under the Global Gainlines banner. It's been a busy week. There's a lot to talk about. We have a full, almost a full panel. Unfortunately, Jean could not make it this evening. Let's start the show. Temikosi, welcome back. How was Mauritius? And yeah, you seem like you got a tan. Yeah.
It was great, as you can see. I'm not sure about the tan, but my hair looks like a mess.
Yeah, both of us, we've got melanin, so we always look like we got a tan. Lisa B, nice to see you. How was your weekend?
Really good. No melanin here. I burn in when the full moon is out. So, but it was good. It was jam-packed, full of all sorts of rugby. My mind is full of all of the stuff that I watched this weekend, but had a really, really nice time.
Great. And just a reminder, if you enjoy this program here on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and click the notification bell. If you do not click the notification bell, I'm inclined to believe you are Ben Smith. First topic, Springboks revenge their loss to Australia by defeating them down the road from me here at DHL Cape Town Stadium. Temikosi, you weren't here last week, so I'll give you the opportunity to talk first. What were your takeaways from this historic victory?
Compared to last week, they certainly controlled the game a little bit more, and there was better game management. I'm thinking it's because Boland was there. He managed the game pretty well. But if I have to say, it wasn't a convincing win. It was an okay win. But then again, I think looking at the past 3 to 4 games, except for the one that we lost, all of them were kind of like, we won, but could do better. And I think this week was pretty much the same. But they played really well. I was more impressed by Australia. Even this time, they kept themselves in the game.
Lisa B, players that stood out for you this weekend?
Oh, players that stood out. Look, Kwaha had a bit of a redemption game, which was great to see, despite the penalty right before halftime. But it was nice to see him, kind of being his old self, and also playing most of the game, right? Yeah. So I was really happy and impressed to see him there. The other person that impressed me was, well, I know there were a few that didn't impress me, and those are top of my mind. I was quite disappointed in Moody, I have to say, not just because of the faults that he, or the mistakes that he made, but more because I felt like he just gave up. Right, so that what was it? The Tool try. He was actually, if you go back and look, he was right in front of Tool as Tool catch the ball, and of course he had to turn, but Tool actually started behind him, and there was just no effort, and that was. But I'll talk about that later. That was like my big takeaway from this weekend. But happy that we won.
No, it's a historic. I jokingly said it was an historic victory, but we needed to get one in the win column again, especially going over to New Zealand soon. We were in the lead for most of it, but it was touch and go there. It was only a short period of time that Australia were in the lead, and then we sort of pulled off the victory. Temikosi, your thoughts on Australia? Anybody that stood out for you, or anybody you're upset with?
I think the one thing that upset me, but it's not really like upset me because they didn't play, it was when Nick White went off and Tom Wright also went off. Yeah, the game kind of slowed down for them. I was wondering how it would have been had they played, let's say, majority of that match. But if I had to pick standout performance for me, it was the new Women's 11. Who was it? I think it was his debut. What's his name? I forgot his name. And obviously, who's this? The other winger, Jorgensen. I think he had a great game.
Yeah, that's Corey Toole coming from the seventh system, and then Max Jorgensen's really been a standout high-level rugby from him. Kwagga Smith killing Nick White. So I believe I believe he was cremated and the ashes were taken back to Australia. So it's very similar to the cricket. Yeah, Kwagga Smith really got a hold of Nick White and slammed him down. But that's rugby. Yeah, look, the scoreline doesn't really give the full picture of the game. It was far closer than what we thought. I'm getting a lot of feedback, people saying South Africa didn't play that well. The reality is that if you're the South African coaching staff, if you don't rotate players in and you start getting injuries and then you're forced to play people and then you get poor performances, then you're going to be criticized for not rotating in fresh blood too early enough. But if you do put in a system as the South African coaching staff is doing now, in that they're very meaningfully trying to balance youth and experience and exposing players to higher levels of rugby, then when you have sort of disjointed performances, then you're going to get criticism again. So the reality is that as a South African rugby coach, you're never really going to win. So you got to just do what you feel works best for the team. I mean, look at the Currie Cup. The URC franchise teams are struggling because they're not getting the balance of youth and experience correct, because they're trying to prepare as best they can. Why? Because they want to win the URC and they want to win either Champions Cup or Challenge Cup games. So it's basically they're in preseason. Whereas the teams that play in the SA Cup, all the South African rugby unions, other than the 4 franchise teams, we're talking now Boland, Pumas, Griquas, and what's the other one? Boland, Griquas, Pumas. Cheetahs, yeah, Cheetahs. I never think of Cheetahs as a non-union because they were in Super Rugby for so long. I apologize, Cheetahs. Don't come after me. The Currie Cup is their URC, so they're just giving it their all. They're playing their best players all the time, whereas like the South African national team is trying to purposefully, not out of force, and some people are critical of the stuff. Like, why are they trying to mix in? Why are they trying to do a bunch of different things at once? Because they have to. Because it's really the mature thing to do. Yes, you risk losing games so now and then if you try and blood players in, but at least they're going with a balance of, say, 70% experience, 30% inexperience. That having been said, maybe going into the Rugby Championship, we didn't have the level of rugby to prepare us for this tournament that Australia did. Australia got their butts handed to them by the Lions, which is like a invitational team and of really good players, but still they don't have the cohesion. So that's what the Lions though is. It's a bunch of players from Europe with no cohesion, having to coalesce very quickly versus a national team. Australia got that thing, and they played poorly in the first game, okay in the second game, and really well in the third game. So they progressed. Whereas South African played 4 games, but we played against lesser opposition, so we really tested. New Zealand might have faced a C/B team from France, but those players are still very good. So I'd say Australia had the best preparation, New Zealand the second best, and us not so great. But that's just the nature of what's going on. So I thought South Africa were gonna win the first game at Ellis Park, and we lost. I wasn't upset about it. It's part of the process. And I'm glad we won the second game, and not overly surprised either, even though it was stop and go. Any final thoughts from either of you on this game before we move on? I'm going to take that as a no. Okay, so
well,
we're going to...
hang on. Yeah. So it's a very interesting, and it's actually a question that I want to ask you guys. So in the past, since Rassie has come in, let's say since Rassie has come in, we have been okay with losing when it's not World Cup, right? The fans have been on board with it. There was a kind of a clear message of we know we're losing, but we're building towards something, so just stick with us. And most South African fans I know were fine with that. As long as we win the World Cup, we don't really care about anything else, right? That's kind of the thinking. Although, of course, we like winning. This since 2023, I think there's been a bit of a shift. There's been a shift with how Rassie is communicating and also expectations, I think, from fans that want a more dominant side. Everybody wants to be like the old All Blacks, right? Where we just win everything. And I'm wondering if we are not getting ahead of ourselves in terms of that goal. And I'd love to know what you guys have to say about that.
Yeah. Himigosi, you can go first. Yeah.
I think I hear your argument, and I feel like I'm one of those fans that expect them to be. I think after 23, after we won that World Cup, it kind of felt like, yes, we are the best team in the world, but the only other team that won back-to-back World Cups did it in such a way that they left a legacy, and which was the All Blacks. And I think we got to the point where we wanted to emulate the All Blacks. We wanted to not just be better at them at the World Cup. We wanted to be overall better than the All Blacks, which makes sense because they are our rival. I think that's why we are more. How can I say this? We don't like to lose. We don't want to lose because we wanted to put up such a record that even if when we get questioned who's the best team in the world, we can confidently say the Springbok because they were able to repeat what New Zealand did and did it better. I think that's what we were going for. But as you were saying, I also realized that we have a lot of players that are at the end of their career, and we need to kind of rotate a lot of people. And look at the injury at 8 men. If we don't solve that now, we're going to have big problems 2 years along the line. And that is just not even just the 8-man position. I feel like there's a lot of positions in our squad that, yes, we have people, but are they World Cup winning people? Like, let's say at fullback, we have Patsy and Willems. Are they the two that going to take us to the World Cup and win? Because I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to unpack here. I think having watched Jake White win a World Cup and then having to sit through sort of the inconsistencies and the ups and downs of Peter de Villiers, who I think is a good coach. And he had his own sort of things that he had to manage. I mean, coming from the under-21 Springbok setup and then having to coach all these guys who just won a World Cup. He did win the Lion series and that type of thing. So Peter de Villiers got 4 years. Heineke Meyer got 4 years. Heineke Meyer also had his ups and downs. I have agreements and disagreements with Heineke Meyer. We don't have time to go through all of them. He's obviously a good coach as well as Peter de Villiers because, I mean, if you despite having criticisms of Heineke Meyer, he did win multiple Super Rugby. So, and I don't support the Bulls, so I have to acknowledge that he has to have a degree of ability as a coach. Alistair Coetzee took over again, and he had his ups and downs. Rassie, this is gonna sound sort of revisionist, but I was always a Rassie Erasmus guy. I didn't know, I'm too young to have watched him play rugby. But when he took over the Cheetahs and he was trying to innovate in a time of rugby, especially in South African Rugby Union, where it was very conservative, it was very like, don't try new things. And if you did try new things and it failed, we're going to throw you away. Rassie Erasmus was sort of fearless. And we can have the debate of can he, as a certain person who's played Springbok rugby, who's played rugby, who is a Caucasian man in South Africa, did he have a bit more leeway to be inventive and innovative, that type of thing. And Rassie then left Cheetahs to go to Western Province, and he did innovative stuff there. And when he spoke, and then he went overseas and that type of thing, Ireland, when he spoke, it was always like, I don't care, I'm just going to try new innovative things because we can't stagnate. So we're in this sort of thing where he wins a World Cup, having taken over mid-cycle from Alistair Coetzee. Then he wins another World Cup despite the disruptions of 2020 and 2021. So that's again an unideal build up to a World Cup, that type of thing. So I have a great deal of faith in Rassie Erasmus, in Jacques when he was there, in Stick, and the coaching staff, Dion Davids and that thing, because the ethos is we're gonna do the thing we think is gonna give us the best result. And the reality is despite the hundreds and thousands of hours of rugby that I've watched live and on TV, I feel like I'm going to defer to their sort of expertise on this. So if they are trying new things and trying to sort of build towards a World Cup for this reason, whilst at the same time, because I wrote this recently on like a message saying they're effectively trying to do a few things. They're trying to blood new players in, give us the best possible chance of winning every game, while simultaneously try to win the rugby championship and win a World Cup. Because if we win a World Cup, we've got the most World Cups. But if we win a World Cup this year, we'll be the first team to win a three-peat. And I don't think anybody in my lifetime, any other team will be able to do that. So that's what I really want. I want us to win a three-peat. If we win the rugby championship 4 years in a row up until the next World Cup, and then we lose, we get knocked out of the World Cup by Argentina and Australia, I'm going to be sad because I weirdly don't value the rugby championship that much. I just see it as a bunch of test matches and I want us to win test matches. What I do weirdly value is I like it when we end of the year, we go over to Europe. I like it when we try and do a Grand Slam, and I like it when we just try and just win all the games. Because sometimes you can't call it a Grand Slam because you don't verse all the Six Nations teams. So it's a position that we're fortunate to be in, and I personally have gone through many ups and downs, more downs than ups with the Springboks. So when we're in this type of situation, I tend to be more lenient in terms of, we lost the game here and there's a broader plan to it, that type of thing. If we lose like 4 games in a row, then I might be somewhat worried. But with this coaching staff, I just give them, they have earned, in my view anyway, they have earned the benefit of the doubt. Lisa B, you wanted to come in there for a moment?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you in very in a lot of what you said, but that's what I was getting at earlier as well. This team that played against Australia, or the teams that played against Australia, the one thing that really scares me is the not going for that 1%, because that is the brand of rugby we have built since 2019. Right, going for the 1%. That's why Chesy could chase down that kick. That's why we got the 1-point wins, because the margins are so narrow, and we can't play like that in New Zealand. That's like for sure, right?
Can you articulate what you mean by 1%? Sorry.
The 1%, like chasing those narrow things. The one thing of this last weekend's game that was very apparent, or that stood out to me, is how, when you're watching a rugby game and the other team, it just seems like the ball is always going to hand, or it bounces favorably for them, or they get those little small wins, right? That usually to me says they are the team who are fighting harder and going for those small little things that if you don't go full out for it, you're going to miss the ball. Maybe you're going to miss it when you do go full out, but you still try. And that energy, that kind of ferocity, for lack of a better word, that's what we're lacking. That's what we had in the World Cup. That's what we had last year, even. And I'm not seeing it this year, not in any of the matches that we've played.
Yeah. Look, so from what I've heard from the camp, there's the other aspect that they're also working on is that you need to, if you're serious about winning a World Cup, you also have to prepare for the conditions. So apparently we're also working on a game plan that will work within the Australian conditions at that time of the year in Australia. Not just in Australia, but also that specific time of the year in Australia. And the whole sort of not showing your hand thing is coming to implement as well. It's almost as if they are trying different things whilst also in training preparing aspects that they don't show too much to the opposition before World Cup, so the opposition doesn't have the time to prepare a counter, because it's constantly, it's almost like very much like MMA. Rugby in many ways is very much like mixed martial arts. It's basically like 5-dimensional chess, that type of thing, where it's like, oh, you do this, so I'll do that. But the thing is, if you show the opponent what you're going to do, if there's a lot of tape on you and the opponent's just studying the tape, but you do 2 or 3 things that they've never seen before, they don't have time to adapt to it. Even within a World Cup cycle of like you play a semifinal and you did this, and then the teams are trying to figure out in 6 days time, they're probably going to do this, so then we'll do that type of thing. So there's that aspect to, but I hear what you're saying in terms of definitely in the last World Cup, there was that thing of like we were doing things where these games were razor thin. The counter argument, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here because I appreciate your insight on that. The counter argument on that is we're doing a lot of different things, but can we expect that type of emotional investment from the players sort of like all the time? Are we going to burn them out, that type of thing? Even if the Springboks only play 13 games a year, and there's even going to be a 2 weeks break. In fact, if you count just the time between 1 week's break, if you count just traveling and then training, that type of thing. So, in fact, I don't know when. We're obviously going to New Zealand now, but I don't know when they're flying out yet. So yeah, there's all these things to unpack, but we also have to acknowledge that we're in a very, very privileged position to be having these conversations, because I'm sure the Italy supporters here are going like, wow, I wish we had these problems. All right, guys, we're going to move swiftly on. We're going to quickly look at Argentina's historic victory. I sarcastically said earlier, South Africa had a historic victory against Australia. This is an actual historic victory for Argentina against New Zealand, because yes, Argentina have beaten New Zealand before, but it was only ever in New Zealand. This is the first time they've ever beaten New Zealand in Argentina. So it's like fantastic for their fans and stuff. Lisa B, you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, I must admit I did not watch the whole game. I was very, very tired and I went to bed, but I was so happy for the RGs. Like, I don't know if I've said this before, they're my second team. I absolutely love those guys and the fans too. So historic win for them. Matera was awesome, and I'm kind of happy that the All Blacks also caught a wobble. We're not the only one. Of course, this like sets up Eden Park on a whole other level. But yeah.
Demikosi, how big a fan are you of Argentinian steak and beer and all the good stuff?
I'm even glad that they actually won that match. They played really, really well. I thought that when Albanus went out, maybe they were gonna drop, but Santiago Carreras just took the game, just changed everything for Argentina. I'm worried about New Zealand, especially their back row situation. Seems like they haven't found the best back row. Their center combination, I mean, Bill Proctor was fine, but I don't know, their backline doesn't seem like it's functioning as it should. But I was really happy for the Argentinians. I remember when Damien McKenzie was kicking his last kick, and everyone was already celebrating because Argentina had already won. Like, when do you ever see that happen?
This sets up very nicely for the South Africa versus New Zealand game at Eden Park. We haven't won there in years. They haven't lost there in years. It's going to be exciting. Any last thoughts from me? Well done, Argentina. They showed a lot of grit. I'm really looking forward to the Australia-Argentina games. Going to see how that happens. Also, I'm really happy with the parity. As much as I'm not a huge rugby championship guy, I just like seeing the games. Whoever wins it. It's generally New Zealand or South Africa. Sometimes South Africa. Most of the time it's New Zealand. So yeah, I'm glad there's complete parity, because these Six Nations people like to say, oh, well, the rugby championship, it's always one team running away with it. But and then they always say, oh, in the Six Nations, there's always like one major upset. We've already got 2 major upsets. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. On we move to somewhat concerning news, but we have to also unpack it. There's been a lot of overly emotional reporting on this, but the facts are that Atsinate Tlhapakane did provide a adverse sample. However, it's not as sketchy as people might think. So, and the fact is that he could have actually toured with South Africa to New Zealand. He's not on the plane. He's not with the group, but the team actually prefer that he stay behind and sort of address this and could focus on this, because it makes sense that if a player gave an adverse sample to like a drug test and it came back a little sketch, that they have to go fly over for a tour. Their minds might not entirely be on the game. So we wish him well. This could hurt the Lions, or sorry to tell you, Temikosi, this could hurt the Lions prospects in the URC, depending on how long it drags on. Yeah. Promising young player. Temikosi, any thoughts on this?
I actually read the article. Like this, from my understanding is that whatever substance it wasn't a performance enhancing substance, and it was prescribed by a doctor. So, and I think I'm not sure if this doctor is the same doctor for SA Rugby or is it a different doctor, but they did say some doctor prescribed it. So I'm hoping that everything works out, because he is a very talented player and I wouldn't want to lose him. So I'm really hoping it works out. But yeah, I guess I'll have to wait and see before I actually make a comment.
Yeah, it's so difficult being a professional athlete because you really have to monitor what you consume. You go out to a restaurant or something, and I just can't imagine if somebody's like out to get you, they sort of like hand you a bottle or something like that. So yeah, we wish him well. He's vital to what we spoke about earlier, our succession plan. All right, we move swiftly on to just analyze the team on the plane headed to New Zealand. Lisa B, any big surprises for you? You're quite happy to see Siya Kolisi there. I understand he'll probably be fit for the second game, not the first game.
Yeah, I think, even if he doesn't play at all, just having him in the squad, I think is a good idea. Obviously I want him to be fit and healthy. So yes, very happy to have him there. And I understand why no other eights have been brought into the squad. You can't just, parachute someone in at this stage. But yeah, I mean, Jasper Wiese is only going to be available for the second match, I think, as well. So then the question becomes, okay, are we starting Kwaha again? Like I said, he had his bit of redemption on the weekend, and he's proved that he can do that. However, can he do that for 60 or 70 or how many minutes against New Zealand? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, Jean-Luc Dupree's there. He had a bit of a cold, as did many people in Cape Town lately. He should be okay. At least the coaching staff feels like he should be physically okay. Other than him, other than Jean-Luc, Siya, but he's also got an injury cloud over him, and Kwaha, who in the team. Oh yeah, then Jasper can play in the second game. So we definitely know Jasper can play in the second game. But in the first game, we are playing it a bit loose here. Maybe they should have just roped in, because I don't believe they're restricted in any manner in terms of how many players. It just cost wise. They could have been brought Roos in. Obviously, Ulrich Low and Hanakoma are injured. So as it relates to the eighth position, I mean, Pepsi Buthelezi as well. He's in week 8 of the URC preseason with the Sharks right now. He's a guy who has played eighth man for South Africa and open side. So former SA Baby Bok captain as well. So I would have roped in one of those guys, but I don't know. I don't know if Jono Trokio Augustus is still injured. So we're cutting it close there. We're sort of rolling the dice. It might come back to hurt us. So we'll see what happens. But I do understand the coaching staff does often say, look, we can't have too big a squad, not just in terms of cost, but also in terms of like giving these people the attention they need, that type of thing. So we'll see how it pans out on the backline players. Any thoughts, Nkosi?
Just before I move on to the back end, I want to jump in on that 8-man conversation,
Oh yeah.
especially with Kwaha. My problem with Kwaha, I saw him on the weekend that he was caught playing two roles. It seems like, yes, he was playing the number 8-man, but every now and then he was going back to his flank position. And that's when he sometimes lost turnover or he was over eager. So I'm not sure if Kwaha is the perfect number 8, because I feel like sometimes it gets caught in two minds of, am I a flanker? Am I an 8-man? Because I think naturally he's a flanker and his thought process goes to flank. I don't know if you know what I mean. And I feel like that was like an issue that I saw with him. And maybe that's why he also didn't play the whole match. But going back to the back line, it's nice to see Ethan Hooker made it. I was hoping he was going to play the past two games, but I understood that he probably didn't play the past two games because they lost the first one.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to see Ethan Hooker as well. Marco Verstappen, he could, I guess, in an emergency play 8th man. He didn't have a great game against Australia, though. I'm a bit disappointed. That's one thing I forgot to talk about when we were analyzing the game. Some of the penalties were very club rugby thing. So if I watch club rugby and I see people do that, I'm like, okay, he's a builder on Monday to Friday. It's like, life happens. But if I see some of these oaks who play in Japan and whatnot and get paid millions to play rugby, sometimes I think, look, even in the heat of the moment, and I try not to be overly critical of players or referees. I think, wow, that was kind of silly. Of course, the counter argument I saw in the press conference from the South African coaching staff was some of the penalties Marco van Staden gave away and one or two that Kwagga gave away are sort of 50-50. They basically were saying like some referees would have let them steal the ball there. And that is true. There's a degree of interpretation within rugby refereeing. Yeah, that's about it. We look forward to those two games. Although I know the world's going to be watching. So in fact, next week we'll have a bit even a closer look at these games, and we'll have Jean as well as a special guest panelist. So hopefully next week we'll actually have a five-person panel. Yeah, it's a surprise who's joining us. He's probably watching right now. But yeah, tune in to find out. Like and subscribe so you get the notification. Now we move on swiftly to the other Springbok victory of this weekend. The Springbok Women's beat Brazil women and in their first fixture of the Rugby World Cup, the Women's Rugby World Cup, 66 points to 6. We'll pass it first to you, Lisa B. What were your thoughts on the game?
Would it be crazy if I said I cried afterwards? I was so happy for this team. I thought they played really well. Well, let me talk first about Brazil. First World Cup for them ever. I had an idea in my head that they would not last the full 80, and I was incredibly wrong. They were so fast on defense and on jackling the ball. They were everywhere. And I was really impressed with their defense because we all know they have that attacking mindset from sevens, which was also great and fun to see. But what impressed me most about them is that they lasted the full 80 with excellent defense. They were really cool. I saw a stat, they made 232 tackles in that game. And they ran into Babal Walacha and Charlie and all of our big units up front, and they did not give up. So well done to them, but more well done to the Springbok women. And yeah, I was so happy to see them on the stage of the world stage and doing their thing.
Nkosi, what were your takeaways from the game?
I remember because I switched from the Bulls to watch this match, and I kind of felt like the crowd was not. I kind of felt like the crowd was not on our side. Hey, I felt like we were the bad guys. Like we were playing the whole match, and it was nice, but you could see that the whole crowd was supporting Brazil, and it kind of seemed like we were the party poopers. But in all honesty, that was a nice match. It kind of gave me like it felt like how the men's in 2019 played. Like they played like the exact same game plan from how the wing structure. I felt like we had a Mapimpi on 14. I'm on 11, and Chest and Kobe on 14. But they had a similar play, like Malinga and can't remember the name of the wing. Kind of
Samboya.
played somewhere. Yeah, they played exactly like Currie and Mapimpi. And Dolph was amazing also, but I think standout performance has to go to Royce. Royce was running the show. Okay, maybe
Excellent.
and the 8 men, the 8 women, I guess.
Yeah. So she's Asezehele. She is amazing. I think most people, she caught most people's eyes, especially also with Apiwe Ngwevu. They both have the same hair, and they are both just like, running lines through people. So that was,
They kind of
I,
gave me like they were twins vibe, like the way they
yes,
played. It seems like they were playing exactly the same. Like they were always running with the ball, crashing in. Like if it
yeah.
wasn't the 8, it was the 12. Okay, first half definitely it was Rele. Then second half it was what's her name?
Apiwe Ngwevu.
Yeah, Apiu in the second half had held the games up, especially when the subs came on. She was the one that was still leading the charge. So it was a great game.
How
How do
was
you
that
guys feel
Bobsquad?
about the
Sorry.
closing, taking the whole bench off all at once? Do you
That
enjoy
was
that?
epic.
Is it
It
is
was
it like our
epic.
culture now? Can we adopt the culture of a bonfire? It seems like it's going to be our culture now. It seems like we do it very well.
I think it speaks to innovation, and we have to acknowledge sort of the work done in the background by the broader South African rugby administration. You got to remember that leading up to the most recent World Cup, Jacques was Springbok coach, whereas Rassie was head of sort of above him. But Rassie was quite um, involved in the sevens, in the under 20s, just helping put the structures in place. I believe he's still got that role to an extent now. And now they found the right sort of mix. I was always a big Swiss the Brain guy. Not he's did really well at the Lions, and then obviously he's on Supersport quite often, or at least he was, and his knowledge of the game really comes through. And Swiss, having been in the senior Springbok setup and working with guys who haven't, because the women's Springbok setup is very unique and diverse. Even the one guy used to be in the men's under 20 team, that type of thing. So they've brought together a nice group of talented, diverse, different views and voices. And yeah, we wish them well moving forward in the tournament, because we're going to look forward now at all. We're going to quickly breeze through all the results. So it was England defeating USA quite convincingly. Australia defeating the Oceania brethren Samoa quite convincingly. Scotland. Oh, this one was very interesting. Why? Because these two teams are on the world rankings are right next to one another. I can't remember which one is which, but yeah, the Welsh and Scottish podcasts that I've watched, they were all like, this was a close one. The Scottish podcasts were obviously quite stoked that they won. Welsh podcasts are down, but they've still got a tournament to play. Canada, very good team. No one can Everybody can explain to me how good they are. No one, I've watched and listened to so many podcasts. No one can explain to me how they got to that point. I even asked, shout out to you, Griffin, on the chat group, and he was like, I don't know. It's like it's an anomaly. Okay. France beat Italy. This affects us quite a bit. Italy didn't score any. These two teams are in our group. Italy didn't score any points against France. So that means we've got a significantly better points difference than Italy. And Italy are the team we're most likely going to fight to get into the next round. So that's quite big. We'll unpack that a bit later. Ireland, very good team, defeated Japan quite convincingly, and obviously we defeated Brazil. And then later that evening, New Zealand in a very well-spirited and interesting match. Lots of the New Zealand fans interacting with New Zealand players interacting with the fans afterwards. So yeah, so far from what I've seen of this tournament in England, everybody who's in England, including the people I know who actually flew there, are having a lot of fun. Any thoughts, Lisa B, on the general tournament and results you want to unpack?
Yeah, I must say, the two Six Nations matchups were a bit disappointing. Like you mentioned, Scotland, Wales. I did expect a little bit better of Wales. I mean, there are reasons why. Um, but yeah, like I said, I still expected a little bit more from them, and I'm sorry that that they couldn't get there in the end. Because Wales are awesome. And France, Italy, I still don't know if Italy were playing really good or if France were playing really badly, because you would have expected France to walk away with this game. And Italy did really good on defense. Um, they are a little bit, or they have focused more on their attack, especially in the last Six Nations. So I think they'd be disappointed that they didn't get any points on the board. But like you said, this is good for us. We have to remember that Italy are also still playing Brazil, so they will probably put a big score onto them, which will affect our points difference. But yeah, and then also the Japan team. That was kind of apart from our game. The Ireland Japan game was my favorite. I just love the Japanese, and they showed so much heart, and those two tries that they scored were just chef's kiss.
Let Kosi, any final thoughts before we move on?
The only thing that I can say is that there seems like there's a real difference between the big teams and the small teams. Even in this World Cup, you can see that by the score margins, the big teams are really good and the other teams are not as good. But like it's still the first round. I'm waiting to see, maybe we'll see better or more entertaining games as the competition goes along. But from this round, I can only say that the big team seems like they're running away with it.
Yeah, good point. But
I'm not even sure if
we're going to still be watching quite closely. All right. So before we move on to the Currie Cup, like, subscribe, click the notification bell. Lots of really good podcasts on this Global Game Lines YouTube channel, including the Women's Triage, which focuses on women's rugby. The Interpro show, which I forgot about last week. Sorry, Kaylin. What else? It's Women's Triage. Interpro show, that's the Irish podcast. It's the Wall Street Journal, that's the rugby podcast from the USA. So if you've ever wondered what a rugby podcast would look like when it was shot during the Hunger Games, check that out. And then we've also got the URC Rewind, which will start out as soon as the URC starts out again. I will also be on that podcast along with some of these nice folks that are subbing in as well. And then the final one is this one, Bit of an Animal. So please like and subscribe. Also, give us a review on any audio platforms. We now move swiftly on to my favorite part of the week, the Currie Cup. So we started on Friday with, oh wow, let me start by saying all three of the four Currie Cup games this week, the two games on Friday, the game on Saturday, were fantastic. The game on Sunday was interesting, but it wasn't close fought. All right, we'll get to that. But yeah, the two games on Friday, the first one, Pumas. Yeah, back at the Mbombela Stadium. Shout out to the Pumas for taking the game to the Nelspruit Rugby Club last week. Good. But they're back now playing in Mbombela Stadium this past Friday against the Cavaliers, who I thought the Pumas were going to be slight favorites. And then Lisa B's first team, because Western Province is the second team, pulled off a last-minute victory. Lisa B, how happy are you? Scale of 1 to 10.
Yes, just very happy, and I kind of feel like we don't deserve to win that game. It was a crazy game. It was violent, I want to say. Those Pumas really, really were out to smash us. And you could also see the team was tired, I said last week. So we had a 4-day turnaround with travel up country. And I think you could see that it took a toll on the players. Just if you're going to play Boland rugby, you have to land every pass. You have to, pull through on that. And if you just miss the pass or you do those small little things, there were so many knock-ons, then yeah, you're gonna have problems and you're gonna have a long night. Sad for me, I don't like winning with a penalty try, but that's the way the game goes, and I'm incredibly happy. Also happy that we'll have a bit more time to rest up before we face the Sharks. But yeah, and also just Xavier Mitchell. Oh my goodness, I love that guy. He was so explosive on the wings, and in the end, oh, and when who was that? Ah, sorry, I have to look at my notes. The number 22 came on. I'll find it now.
Jean Mostert, former
Yes.
Matis player. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Exactly. His passing was just ace, and it was so nice to see Tedder back on. He really drives that team so nicely from the back. So happy, but yeah, it was a slog for me. I don't know. Not my best game of the weekend.
You say, shout out to Sibusiso Sangweni, former Lions player. I remember him quite distinctly. Yeah, you say you don't know. I'll take a victory anyway. So if the opposition wants to slap the ball down late, which player was that again? I'll get his name here now. Darren Adonis with the dreadlocks. The thing I will say is I'm super stoked that Ross Brody is joining the Sharks at the end of this Currie Cup. We're gonna need him in the URC. He's very good. Jean was saying maybe because me and Jean didn't know much about him, somewhat of an obscure player. So Jean was sort of like passing, saying, "Oh, maybe Rassi should steal him." But unfortunately, he's been playing for Canada every year for the last 4 years. So there's no way Canada's not going to pick him, and there's no way he's going to turn down an opportunity to play for Canada by indirectly saying, "Oh well, I'm not going to play for you. I'm 25 now. I'm not going to play for you because maybe in 3 years' time, Rassi will pick me." If Rassi's still the coach. So it's impossible for him to play for the Springboks because I don't think he's going to do something underhanded like that because Canada won't not pick him and he won't not sit out. But one thing I will say is, as much as I like him as a player, I'm stoked he's joining the Lions. Sorry, the Sharks. That try that he scored, the first try, I kind of think it wasn't a try. I thought the Boland player had his hand underneath it, but maybe I don't understand the rules. Maybe because the Boland player had his hand underneath it and then he still could put the ball down. It's probably a try. So yeah, then Mikosi, any thoughts on Lisa B's team storming to a Currie Cup victory?
I think they did very well. They did very well. I'm thinking if they can get like a home semi-final and final, they probably win it. Because if you look at the squad, there was no Donovan Don, there was no Tobias, there was no, what's the sheriff's name again? I forgot his name. So I was surprised that even without most of their players, because I'm assuming that they didn't make the travel because they still have jobs, they still pulled out a very good performance. So if they get like a home run for the playoffs, I see them winning. Maybe Cheetahs, they still beat the Cheetahs. They already beat the Cheetahs once. Actually twice this year.
Yeah, so I think we might not have known. The assumption was that Boland would be whipping boys like Griffins were last year, right? But we didn't give enough credit to the fact that since Boland have been bought, 75% of them been bought by the consortium who also owns the Bulls, that the work that's been done in the background and the players that they've got, if I look across their team, it's sort of a good, healthy mix of players on the fringes of the Lions teams, the Bulls teams, people who left the Southern Kings when they lost Super Rugby games, like Sangweni, former Lions player, good player in his own right. Dejan van der Wester has a lot of Super Rugby experience. Yuri van Vuren, another former Lions player. Schroeder, extremely experienced, play for everybody. Sharks, Stormers, Bath. Ashland Davids, fringes of the Lions team, good player there. Night. People think, oh, he's just the fringes, like, he can't be any good. He's pretty good. Inside center, we've mentioned him before. I've spoken to the people who help manage him at the CPT Rugby Club. They're big fans of his. So they're smart the way they're doing it. And all the teams, especially in the Western Cape, are trying to get as many sevens players as they can within reason. So even Boland are getting sevens players, and it's not like they're giving even the castaway sevens players. The sevens players that they're getting, there's the assumption that maybe Western Province will get their first pick. The sevens players are like, oh, I'll play for VP first. And those who don't get VP contracts play for Boland are maybe not going to be as good, but they're proving themselves to be very, very good. Amir Hendricks, full disclosure, I know his family. So he's come back from Georgia, the country. Last year he played there for like two years, and he's coming off the bench consistently and playing reasonably well. Mostert, we mentioned earlier, almost directly from the Marty's University system. For those of you foreign people who are unaware, Marty's is University of Stellenbosch. So yeah, I'm really glad to have all the teams in the Currie Cup be competitive. All right, so well done to the Cavaliers. Pumas are still in it. I have not written them off entirely. We'll move on to the next game that Friday evening. The later game started at 7. My Sharks under 20 team versus the Western Province under 20 team. So how did we win this game? We didn't start off that great, to be honest, but it was pretty much even. Nobody was scoring. Then it looked like Western Province going to run away with it. They were in a huge lead, 14 points. We came back, Western Province came back, and then it was somewhat tight towards the end. The game itself, players that might have stood out. Again, we're starting with a very youthful front row. So that's not going to work against Pumas, Griquas, Cheetahs, Boland. It's not going to work. But we were playing another under-20 team, and shout out to Western Province, who sneakily snuck in a 27-year-old. Shame on them. So Kobus Elof got lots of Super Rugby experience, been playing for Melbourne Rebels quite a bit. Obviously 27-year-old, not a 22-year-old. So he was there. One of my personal favorites, Karan Tobeni's the veteran hooker. Zachary Porthwaite, former under-20 captain as well. He's playing a bit better. When they play against Pumas, when this front row of Western Province plays against the Pumas with their grizzled veterans, they tend to suffer, but they were playing against us, who were also playing an extremely youthful front row. Liam van Wyk, we stole him from the Cheetahs. He was the Cheetahs Craven Week captain. I think so. Again, I think he's like 20. Pato Pandan, excellent player, still very young. Lee Marvin Mazibuko, 27-year-old, tight head prop, can play lucid. It's just not enough to anchor the team. What's worth noting with the Sharks in this game also, we were disrupted quite a bit by injuries. Promising young lock, Kutsia Leroux went down. The combination between Tino Mavasere and Pato Klekani was very good, which makes me very sad that Klekani is leaving to go play for Tembinkosi at the Lions. So
I am very
excuse
happy.
me if I don't cry. Overall, but we lost a few other guys to injury as well through the game, and that definitely disrupted us. So that's a bit of a concern going into next week, but we'll talk about the team. The team's going to be somewhat refreshed next week as well. So this was my team, the Sharks, versus Lisa B's second team. Lisa B, are you sad, or you just fine because of the fact that your first team won immediately before this?
Look, as long as Cavaliers win, I can't be too sad. But last week I said I think VP are a more settled team than the Sharks. I think the Sharks really showed this week that was not necessarily true. And this makes me very nervous for next weekend because Cavaliers are facing the Sharks at home and they might also be bringing in some URC players. But I thought the Sharks looked much more cohesive. How was that take from Yaku Williams to get that try? That was, I think, the try of the weekend for me. It was so good. So yeah, congratulations to the Sharks. Also, I do want to see the Sharks winning. And for VP, It's difficult. I would love to see them winning, but if they actually, like I said, if they use this experience for their young guys to strengthen the Stormers, then I think it will be worth it. And I think we will only actually be able to judge Sharks and VP Currie Cup performance when we get into like half of the URC and really see how it has translated. So well done, Sharks. Yeah, not too sad.
Yeah, the Sharks and VP, and now the Lion, less so the Lions, but definitely the Bulls are now saying, look, we actually got to shift focus. But the Sharks have been doing that since round one. So yeah, especially when you look at their bench, there's always super young guys on the bench. You look at VP, these Oaks are all very promising, but they're all incredibly young. We're talking about guys. Literally, the one guy who came on was 19. The one guy for the Bulls, the hooker was playing the Bulls starting hooker, replacement hooker was 19. So that's you're gonna struggle with respect to that. Brendan Finter's son, by the way, he was on the bench. Assad Morse was on the bench. I will say VP, wow. I've said this before, but if they've got Ezekiel Ngubeni and Assad Morse and Imad Khan as young guys, that's really good. And then in terms of experience going into the URC, they've got Ungara and Jean's favorite, all-time favorite player, Kobus Reinach. So that's a good balance of youth and experience in terms of scrum offs, because last year it shifted more towards experience. That being said, if Reinach and Ungara get hurt, they might be in trouble, because the three young guys I spoke about are very promising, but how are they going to play in a high-pressure environment such as URC, EPCR, Champions Cup, and or Challenge Cup? So, but yeah, it's good for them that they have such good young scrum halves coming through. Riley Norton usually plays lock at under 20 level, playing blindside flank. That to tell you that you might be big at under 20 level, but you need to get bigger to play lock at a higher level. Any thoughts on this game, Timmy?
I actually didn't watch this game, so I can't say much. But I wanted to see value who's gonna win at the end between these two. And like Lisa said, their performance or how this campaign is going can really be enlightened on when the URC starts, because we want to see if was this gamble worth it or not.
Yeah, this was the battle of the wooden spoon. So I'm hoping VP don't win any more games, so we don't end bottom of the log. It's going to be very weird winning the tournament one year and then ending bottom of the log the next year. But there's a lot of nuance as to why that would happen. Still, I don't want it to happen. Okay, the only game on Saturday was a thriller between Cheetahs and the Lions. The Cheetahs pulled away with it, and then the Lions fought back. But the Lions mostly fought back maybe because of some yellow cards here and there, but that was more the Griquas Bulls game. The Griquas Bulls game was like a full-on Griquas festival of tries, and then one of their players got a red card or a yellow, got a 20-minute red card, and then the Bulls were like, oh, I guess we can put some points on. But we'll get to that a bit later. Good for the Cheetahs, beating the Lions, beginning of the season, the Currie Cup season, both the Bulls and the Lions versus their respective URC franchise teams, Sharks and Western Province / Stormers, and they looked unbeatable. I thought they both were going to go through the whole tournament unbeaten, and maybe just one of them would drop a point against the other and that type of thing, and it would be a Bulls Lions final. I am not so sure anymore. I am actually looking forward to the fact that maybe all the URC franchises don't make the playoffs of the Currie Cup Premier Division, and it's an all SA Cup knockout round, just so that I can feel better the fact that we didn't do so well in the Currie Cup. I can point to the Lions and the Bull supporters and say, well, you didn't even make the playoffs, you didn't make the semi-final. So, Lisa B, did you get a chance to watch this game? And which of the many Pumas, Cheetahs, the players stood out for you?
I actually didn't watch it live, but I did catch it on replay, and it was a flipping exciting game. I love how the Cheetahs are, kind of also changing up that old school style that they've always followed with and adding a little bit, kind of like the Boks in a way, adding some spice into it. I thought Blommetjies had just a great game, and I'm so happy that he's getting more game time there than he was at VP and Stormers. He just looks so comfortable on the field, and he's playing some really nice rugby. So I was very impressed with him. I'm sad for the Lions. I want them to do well as well, and last week they really surprised. So I was wondering if they could continue their winning ways this week, but alas, no.
David Corsi, I should have gone to you first because you are a Lions supporter. I do apologize. What were your thoughts on the game?
Honestly, I think the Cheetahs played better. The first half, the Lions could not exit their half. Their half. They were kept pinned into their half, and they pretty much lost the kicking game because Blommetjies, like Lisa said, Blommetjies was on top of the kicking game and was putting pressure to get the Lions pinned in their half. And every time the Lions couldn't get out of their half, they decided to kick out. And that meant that the Cheetahs had a line out, and then they launched from that. I think they also scored a more try from a line out. So I think the Cheetahs played really well. They trapped the Lions in their half the whole of the first half. The only time that the Lions were in the Cheetahs half was when they scored the try just before halftime. Then second half, it started great. Sounded like the Lions looked like they were fighting. They scored again. I think, they were the first person to score in the first. But again, the Cheetahs took control. But what I liked about the Lions' second half performance is that they didn't try to keep the ball away. They decided to run it, and that kind of helped them because that put Cheetahs under pressure. They got a couple of penalties pushing the Cheetahs back into their half. So, not really impressed by the Lions, but I have to give credits to the Cheetahs. And I thought we were coming back up until the deliberate knock-on by, was it Lombard? Yeah, I think it was Lombard. That's where I saw that the game is over from there. Because I think we had them up until then.
Yeah, it's a very interesting game because, look, the Lions didn't put out a great team. Sorry, the Lions didn't put out a bad team. I apologize. But I find it weird that I think it's a reflection of the fact that we don't know, because many of us don't have the time to really watch SA Cup that closely. This Cheetahs team also beat the Georgia team in a sort of invitational game before the Georgia team faced the Springboks. So it speaks to the fact that we don't know the Cheetahs team that well. Because if I look across the Lions team, it's a pretty strong team. It's definitely not the weakest team they've put out. They've consistently started with this center pairing. Kelly Peku's a good player. Angela Davids has shown why we rate him that highly, and it's a good pickup. Their generally first choice hooker in Super Rugby, in URC, is starting on the bench, and he's there to make an impact. I've been impressed by Shoblom since he came over from Griquas. WJ Steenkamp, I thought he was a good player at the Bulls. When he was at the Bulls, he basically just left because the Bulls have more loose forwards than they know what to do with. Interesting to see Sam Francis back in the mix. He's quite young. I don't rate him super highly, but Leighton Owen is there. He's quite good. Tapiwa Mafura, I've been watching him for a while. So these are like known entities. Legitimately, I think Darren Landsberg, if a French T2 team doesn't pick him up, I don't know where their scouts are looking at. If they're using this podcast as scouting, they need to give us some sort of commission. Daniel Martin, the guys on the Cheetahs team that I know of is Daniel Martin because he's been there for ages. The suspicion of Daniel Martin moving to another club or another union has been around for decades. Franco Smith Jr., I'm impressed by his passing. You can see he's played at a slightly higher level. Musi was at the Cheetahs, went to the Bulls and came back to the Cheetahs. He's quite good. I'm glad they've brought him back. Victor Sekekete, captain of the Cheetahs, generally he's a high quality player. But I can pick out players from the Lions team far more regularly than I can the Cheetahs team, in terms of like quality and stuff. But when you see them play, they're playing quite well. And Clayton Blommetjies looked the spent force as Western Province and sort of looks now revived at the Cheetahs. So yeah, well done to the Cheetahs. We'll look at the log once we round up all the games. But yeah, it's got to remind ourselves that Cheetahs lost to Boland in Wellington in the first week, and we were kind of like slagging them off a little. We didn't know what entity they would be. Final thoughts then, Binkosi?
I just wanted to give a shout out to Blommetjies. Blommetjies was sublime in that game. I saw him at some point. He was also a scrum half. Every time when the scrum half was caught in some sort of ruck, he was there, also playing scrum half. At some point, the scrum half was there, but he was telling him, no, do this, do that. I thought Blommetjies was really controlling the game. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, having that sort of experience and being vocal. I think where the last thing he did for the Stormers was miss a reasonably easy kick at Cape Town Stadium. So I'm not sure they're that sad to see him go. But when do the Cheetahs have the Cheetahs played Western Province yet this season? Or is it the next two
I
rounds?
don't think so.
I think he's gonna put a revenge game on them. It's like, oh, you gave me grief, so now you're gonna lose. Well, now your under 20 team's gonna lose. By the way, the SA under 20 Cup, which there is no under 20 Currie Cup, the SA under 20 Cup is actually running now, starting this weekend. So it started for a bit and then it took a break, and so that the players can play international rugby, the 20 players, and it's going to start up again. So that's also interesting in terms of like the player cohesion and that type of thing. Now we go to the final game of the week. Jean is not here, but Thembinkosi has been kind enough to step in as a Bull supporter. So God bless him. Because the Bulls hosted this game, but they also took the game to the community. They took it to a school in Pretoria, which is great. Fantastic. I think that kind of helped Griquas, to be honest. Griquas are more used to playing in that type of environment. But this was mostly all Griquas until one of the Griquas players got a red card, and then the Bulls came back, like we alluded to earlier. So it was slightly Bulls and then all Griquas, and then Bulls kind of made a comeback. Players I want to, before I pass over to Thembinkosi, players I want to highlight is friend of the program and player we highlighted in episode 1 of this podcast, Gershwin Magic Weir is blowing up. This guy does not get a URC and or French League or I don't know what the Welsh teams are doing, but they've got to like because I see a lot of former Cheetahs players playing in Wales, so they've got to give this guy a call. Another excellent performance. Yeah, high level. And then I would like to also shout out Servino Jacobs, another player we highlighted earlier in the season in our Currie Cup preview show, with a fantastic sort of step. Servino Jacobs defies gravity. Somebody that rotund, moving that fast and stepping that well. It doesn't even make sense. When people watch a lot of YouTube videos of up and coming inside center / outside center Ethan Adams for the SA under 18 team, Servino Jacobs is just the senior version of that. So give him props as well. Thembinkosi, what are your thoughts on quote unquote your Bulls team losing?
I thought they started good. I think they were able to break first and score the first try. So I thought it was good. When that started, I was like, okay, maybe we got this. Maybe we can go somewhere with this. But Gershwin Weir, oh my God, that man had a nice game. I don't even know how many. Did he get his head trick? I think he got his head trick because I didn't see the second half. But that man was playing. And Dylan March, I think you forgot to mention him also. He was also sublime. I think the first try for the Griquas, it was like Dylan just won the ball and just made something out of nothing. And I think he passed it to Abrahams, then it got to Gershwin, and then Gershwin scored. So that was a good game for the Griquas.
Yeah, to win a game away in Pretoria, even if it's not at Loftus, is quite an achievement. Go ahead, Timmy.
I think they should do that more often, where they try to move around, because it felt to me like the ground was like a playing field, like it was a level field where no one kind of had like the home advantage, and the Bulls were not used to playing in that type of setting, you could tell. So I think they should do that more often, where they just move around the games. But the cricketers played really well. And before I got caught, I wanted to say that my only concern with the Bulls was Dainty. I think he did not have a good game. I think some of the tries were some of his mistakes, and I'm not sure. Like I've been ever since last year when he got to the Bulls, I was hoping he was gonna get back to his form, but I haven't seen it. And
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I mean, he was out of the game for a while. He played reasonably well at the Sharks. I would have liked to have kept him because I would have thought he would have been sort of in the mix for URC or at least played in the Currie Cup. But of course, the Sharks' focus was to front in their team and cost a lot of money to keep Oxenchair and some of the other high-profile players. So you got to cut costs some places. So effectively, we I wouldn't say we wrote off the Currie Cup, but we reduced the likelihood of us being competitive in that tournament. Why? Because we just don't have enough players to both have in the URC preseason training as well as a competitive team in the Currie Cup. So, but then that also has the flip side to the coin where lots of young players get to play, and that actually reflects what I'm going to talk about now. Week 1 and 2. The Bulls had so many fringe URC players and even players who played quite a bit, like Zach Berger. Zach Berger having played over the course of the URC and the EPCR season 13 games, which is not a little, but it's not a lot either. Because if you take how many games did the Sharks play in the URC? They played 18 regular season games. And they played a quarterfinal and a semifinal. They got knocked out. So that means 18 plus 2 is 20. How many games did the Sharks play in EPCR tournaments? They played 4 games in the Champions Cup group stage, as well as 1 game in the Challenge Cup knockout stage. So that's 5. So the course of the EPCR, URC competitive season, the Sharks played 25 games, whereas Zach Berger, who played for the Bulls, who made the final of the URC, he played 13 games, but he was playing Currie Cup, so I was somewhat surprised about that. So the Bulls played quite a senior, experienced, strong Currie Cup team in the first 2 rounds, and they played really well. And on top of it, they played Sharks and VP, who were playing the youngsters, and they ran away with it. Then I don't know what they would have done in round 3 if they didn't get the flu. I don't know if they were going to start mixing in players, but we do know now that we're looking at the squad for round 5, and they are playing a mostly youthful team. For example, even not only in round 1 and 2 did the Bulls play guys that play very little in the URC. They also brought back Mervyn Orie, and I thought Mervyn Orie was going to go from France straight into URC preseason. Instead, they were like, "Hey, do you want to play some Currie Cup games and run over some youngsters?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, I got some time." But he's not in the team right now. Junior Pokamela, as we mentioned before, left Western Province and they wanted to keep him, but they couldn't keep him because they didn't have the budget. And he chose not to sign for the Pumas or the Rikwas or whatever. He chose willingly. I don't know how old Junior Pokamela is. I don't think he's even 30. He chose willingly to rather take up a contract with the Bulls as a coach instead of signing with those other teams. How old is Junior Pokamela? He's 28. Why? Because he probably knew that he would then play Currie Cup for the Bulls. So the team for the Bulls is starting to shift more towards what we see with the Stormers in Western Province. It's not as inexperienced, but it's starting to get experience. For example, the starting hooker was 19. The replacement hooker is 19. So you can be super young. The starting props, young guys. 1 senior prop on the bench. That's it. Everybody on the bench, youth team players. They still have some really good players there. I mean, this is a Cheswin Joester trained with the Springboks recently, but still very young player. Zach Berger still there in the mix. Thankfully for them, Buta Chamberlain. There was concerns about his injury, but he was able to play. Naba, despite the fact that he got a yellow card, still high quality player. I'd love to have him at the Sharks for depth. Manjesi played for Cheetahs, went overseas, played 2 seasons in Scotland, come back, has looked very, very good. The fact that the Bulls have this type of depth. So I've rambled on enough. Do you have any final thoughts, Lisa B? We haven't had you weigh in on this game yet.
That's probably a good thing. I didn't watch this game. I did watch the highlights, and yeah, pretty much just agreeing with you about the Bulls at the beginning of the Currie Cup. I thought they were going to be the ones to win it. They have the depth, as you've just alluded to, and they also seem to be, in terms of the URC, teams, they seem to be the one that really wanted to win the Currie Cup this year. I'm not quite sure why exactly with the drop. I know, like we've talked about, the team got ill and that impacted them, but you would have thought that they had enough experience, enough money, enough, their coach is really good. You would have thought that they would be able to still pull it through and not kind of crumble at the end of it. But yeah, I'm not going to cry too much about the URC teams because as you guys know, I love the Griquas too. And any game where the Griquas can run through Bulls players is a good game, in my opinion.
Yeah, maybe we should, before we go, we should highlight some of the Griquas players. Captain Glamini, another guy who came through the Bulls youth system, played for University of Pretoria. That guy is going places. I would keep an eye on him. He's going to be playing for a URC franchise not too long from now. He's very young and he's very talented, very articulate as well. George Whitehead, what you call it, veteran, maybe towards the end of his career, but still you should give him props. Caleb Abrams, again, this is why I love the Currie Cup. We get to highlight players who might not be Springboks, might not be stars on a URC team, but these are really good players. Like Deminkosi said, Dylan Mart might not have scored a try, but played really well. Cameron Hofke. The Griquas is so smart with the Weir, Mart, Hofke combo, and then on top of it, they've got Conor Mahoney on the bench. This player plays lock, and he recently, he's here as a loose forward, but he recently joined from the Griffins. So this is a reflection of the Lions will take players from Griquas, but the Griquas will take players from Griffins. So it's almost like a system that's going through, but there's an opportunity for you to make something of yourself. Even if you play for Falke, Griquas, Falke, Griffins, EP Elephants, Border Bulldogs, you could move up the chain of South African rugby. Prinsloo got a red card. Maybe I shouldn't mention that he's from the Sharks youth system. Forget I said that. Tiaan Lange, excellent player, underrated, always big impact off the bench. We are swiftly running out of time. We'll quickly look at the log. It is Cheetahs who lost their first game. There's only been 5 rounds so far, and the Cheetahs are in the lead despite losing their first game. And the team they lost to in the first game is right behind them, Boland Cavaliers. Griquas, third on the log, having only lost 1 game. All 3 top teams have only lost 1 game, have won 4. Golden Lions, who looked like they were going to go unbeaten this whole season, have actually won 3 and lost 2. Pumas, who I picked to maybe make the final, shows how much I know, have lost 3 and only won 2. Very, very surprising. Bulls, who are swiftly turning into the Bulls under 20 team, 6 on the log. And then the Sharks and Western Province under 20 teams trying not to get the wooden spoon. We move on swiftly to next week's games. This coming Friday, it's Cheetahs versus Griquas. None of us support either of these teams. Deminkosi, who do you think is gonna win here?
I'm gonna go with the Cheetahs.
All right, Lisa B.
Because they're home.
Yeah,
They're a home game. Look, it's going to be an awesome game. Great matchup, so exciting. Also the Friday game, so a nice game to watch after work. I'm gonna go Griquas.
Okay, yeah. Kickoffs at 5. Then Saturday there are 3 games. Remember, there are no Springbok games this weekend, so the Currie Cup can take center stage. It's Deminkosi first team, the Lions, versus Deminkosi second team, the Bulls. Who you got, Deminkosi?
I think again I'm gonna go with the home team, mostly because they really need the win. Because if they don't win this one, I don't think they are in the race for the top 4. So they need to win this. So I'm gonna go with my heart and hoping that they can beat the Bulls. But if the Bulls are slowly training into the under 20s, I see the Lions winning.
I think you guys, the Lions will put out the same team again, like last week and the 5 weeks before that, or the 4 weeks before that, and they'll have more experience, and I think they'll have too much for the Bulls, even though the Bulls are not traveling particularly far from Pretoria to Johannesburg. I wonder if the Lions are going to take the game to the community like the other teams have thus far. All the teams with big stadiums have thus far taken community. Boland and Griquas, haven't really done that because their stadiums are already quite modest. The Cheetahs haven't done it, but Pumas, who are sort of sort of not a major franchise, they have a huge stadium at the Mbombela Stadium. So it was cool that they took it to the Nelspruit Rugby Club as opposed to like a school or that type of thing. It was cool. Next game, when we have to, before we make a prediction, we have to do context. Lisa B touched on it earlier. Neil Powell and JP Peterson have intimated over the last few weeks that from next week onwards, that would be Currie Cup fixtures 6 and 7. They would use those fixtures as preseason games for the URC team that has been in URC preseason for the last 8 weeks. So we're likely to see a lot of really high-profile players in the mix, such as Tutuka, Manu Tutuka, Handru Jacobs, Fezem Bata. Vusi Moyo might get a game as well, young fly-off, because he's been in the URC preseason. Both Hendricks brothers are thought to play, maybe not in this game, but this game and then the 7th fixture as well. So we play Boland this week and then we play Pumas. We play Boland this week, but we're not playing it at Kings Park, by the way. I should mention that. It's going to be at Pietermaritzburg, which is 90 kilometers away from Durban. So it's somewhat of a awayish game for the Sharks as well. So the other players I'm looking forward to seeing is CC Amasuku and then etc. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this because I've been waiting for it for 5 weeks. I wanted to see the actual URC team, and I do apologize, Lisa B, because you guys are probably really tired, and now you have to travel from Mpumalanga, and yeah, now you have to face a URC team. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I'm so happy Mapimpi is playing, has been called up to the Boks, because imagine him being there. That I was not aware of that very long list of very good players that you just read off. So this also comes to the point whether this is actually fair. And the smaller unions have been doing so well, and then for the bigger unions in those last 2 games to bring in and parachute in the URC players, I understand why they're doing it. It's why the URC teams are still kind of bothering with Currie Cup. They want it to be not just their development, but also there for their older players to, like you said, preseason going into URC. But yes, it makes me very nervous. But I'm still backing Boland, so sorry.
Yeah, but that also begs the question. I wonder if the Bulls are going to go full URC as well. And I wonder if Western Province in the last game we talk about on Saturday evening that starts at 20 past 7, I wonder if they're going to go full URC as well, because that game's at Cape Town Stadium. And if they announce the team, will they sell more tickets? So it might be that first, thinking back now, that Lions-Bulls game in Ellis Park, could it be URC versus URC? Because I, 5 minutes ago when we were talking about it, was thinking it was going to be URC versus Bulls under 20 team and the fringe team. So we'll see what the Bulls can actually put out. Because I mean, they had to put Josh Strauss on the bench last week because of injuries. Legendary Lions captain Josh Strauss. I once spoke to Warren Whiteley about Josh Strauss because Josh Strauss had just left the Lions, and then Warren Whiteley was made Lions captain. And then I asked him, "Do you still stay in contact with him?" And he was like, "Yeah, we text quite often." So, and Warren Whiteley, who's salt of the earth guy, says Josh Strauss is a good person. So I would take his opinion on that. Yeah, so that first game of the Saturday, look, we're recording this on Tuesday, the 26th of August. So when the teams get announced, it might be a really fun Saturday to watch rugby. Will I be able to watch it all live? Unlikely. Okay, so I'm obviously picking the Sharks, but I'm looking forward to seeing what team we put out. Temikosi, I didn't ask your opinion on this game. Who do you think is going to win?
If the Sharks bring in the URC team, I have them winning. But I'm kind of going with Boland. I feel like they've been really impressive throughout this whole entire tournament. And it would be a shame for them to, I guess, lose this match. But I really want them to win. Like, if they could. Plus, it would be interesting to see Boland versus. Okay, I guess they did beat the Lions, the Lions URC team. But it would be interesting to see how they compare to like a full-blown URC team.
Yeah, because the Lions had a strongish team that they took to Boland in Wellington, but now now Boland is going to Pietermaritzburg to face Boland's away, and they're going to face a team we'll hopefully see. We're likely to see a mix. We're going to see what Neil Powell and them do. Are they going to mix in the URC guys slowly, or are they just going to go full URC? We'll have to see. Final game of so that Sharks game kicks off at 5:10, and it's in Pietermaritzburg. The tickets will be on sale. It won't be free like the last game the Sharks took to the community in Claremont, in the suburb of Claremont in Durban. But the tickets, I'm told, will be reasonable. Final game, 7:20, DHL Cape Town Stadium, Western Province versus Ailing Pumas. We don't know the teams, so what are your thoughts there, Minkosi?
I think the Pumas win this one. If Western Province play the same team that they've been playing throughout the whole tournament, which most likely is, I see the Pumas being too strong for them.
Yeah, I concur. Lisabi, your thoughts?
Yeah, much is going to depend whether VP bring in their UNC players. I think I saw an interview with Dobbo, which intimated that he would, and also, yeah, so that's going to be the deciding factor. But the Pumas are really hurting from their last loss, so they will want to smash VP if they can.
Yeah, did
So
you
I'm
see
going for
the scenes from recently when the Pumas lost to Boland on Friday? Some of the Pumas players look really distraught. So
They were
yeah.
cut up. I mean, they were at home, and they just came off 2 losses before losing this weekend, if I'm right. So, and this, I think, their home game would have been their little redemption, and we took it away from them. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, who would have thought at this stage, 5 weeks in, both the Pumas and the Bulls would have lost 3 games? Not me, not me. Again, if you guys are if you're watching this podcast and you're gambling on this analysis, it's at your own risk. I wouldn't encourage sports gambling anyway. Statistically, it's a losing battle. Okay, we move on swiftly to just quickly looking at the SA Rugby Under 21 Cup. And if we look at the fixtures, the last fixture was on the 31st of May when Western Province annihilated the Cheetahs. But the next fixture is only this weekend. Oh, is it this weekend or next week? Coming on the 30th. So there's a massive gap here. So I would encourage people to watch the next generation of players competing in this tournament. I'm obviously only bringing it up because the Sharks are second on the log. So I'm biased in that respect. Where's everyone else's team? VP, so that's Lisa B. And Timikosi, your Lions team is not too far away. So yeah, here's Jean's Bulls team. But Jean's not here this week. Jean went on a tour to Camp Staldra, so he'll be back next week. If you know, you know. All right. The most important news of this week, after the much maligned logo gate, it's the new Stormers shirt. I'm not supporting the Stormers. I'm not a Stormers supporter, but I do quite enjoy the second, the away kit. Also, because of the significance, it's paying homage to the community of Bookap within Cape Town, someplace where many of my family members grew up, including across from there in District 6. So this is a homage to the colorful houses within the Bookap community. If you are not from Cape Town, or even if you are from Cape Town, I would encourage you to hire a tour guide and tour Bookap. It's kind of a socioeconomically interesting community, so don't go alone, I would say that much. But yeah, I'm indifferent. I like the second kit. Lisa B, it's your second team. What are your thoughts?
I can tell you like the second kit because you're wearing the same color. I really like the home kit. Although there's always this question, right, between bringing in too much VP looking stuff into the Stormers as SVD and Boland. Stormers are supposed to be representing all of us. But the hoops are just so iconic, and together with Adidas, it's a really nice looking jersey. I have to give it to them. The away kit, I'm not a fan. Like I usually like teams trying something different. I feel like that green is going to completely disappear on the green rugby pitch. I mean, unless they're planning to play against Griquas, they're going to disappear. And yeah, also, I don't know, because the refs wear the outshirts green
Mm.
in the URC, and now Stormers are also going to be in green. It's going to be weird. I'd like to see it on the field. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, it's difficult to judge from looking at it. I think when I initially saw it, I thought like, is that the Highlanders? I don't even watch Super Rugby anymore. I was like, is that the Highlanders kid? And then I saw it, and I saw the background, and I saw Bookap, and I thought, oh, it must be that significance. And then you did the research and brought up the article saying it is that significance. It is that sort of Bookap tie-in. Personally, I don't wear rugby kits. I only own one, and it's the only Sharks one I liked seeing. It's sort of a classic. I'll wear it on the URC podcast, or maybe I'll wear it next week. It's sort of the classic Sharks Currie Cup shirt, and I always liked it. I like sort of the hoop. I like the design of it and that type of thing. So that's the only one I own, because most of the Sharks, other than that shirt, I didn't like any of the Shark shirts, despite enjoying the Sharks. I think it's also because that shirt is very Sharks Currie Cup, and that's when I started following the Sharks per se and that type of thing. I always like our Currie Cup shirts would generally look similar to that. So what I will say is that the Stormers supporters were really excited to, that I know anyway, and online, were really excited to have Adidas back as a sponsor. So many of their key players are already sponsored by Adidas. One of my all-time favorite kits is actually the Lions. When the Lions were coached by Ackerman, they had this really, and they were making 3 Super Rugby finals. Well done to them after rebuilding their team. You got to remember they actually got relegated from Super Rugby. They came back and then they won 3 finals they competed in 3 finals. They didn't win them. They had this really nice looking warm-up kit. That's the one shirt I really liked from another team. But other than that, I'm not a big shirt guy. But oh, by the way, I am wearing this because I don't have any Springbok regalia, so this is the only sort of Springboky green I had. So that's why I'm wearing it. But it does tie in with the Stormers away kit, which I do appreciate the symbology of. I know some people are a little uptight and old and grumpy, and they don't like symbology, but it's okay. You're gonna be dead soon. Temikosi, your thoughts?
I like both kits, the home and away kit. I feel like the home kit looks better. I see what Lisa says when she says it's more of like a Western Province kit, not including the rest of the other rugby unions in that region. But I think it looks nice. It looks really nice. However, now I'm concerned about how it will look on the field, like the green one, as Lisa said, like how will it look on the green field, plus with the outshores referee. It's going to be interesting, but I'm assuming they're going to play them away. And when they're away, they're not in South Africa, so they're probably not going to have that 16-man all in green. That's what I'm hoping. Unless if they play another South African team, but I doubt.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. That's a good point.
Yeah. Actually, Lisa B, you made 2 good points earlier, and Temikosi, you made a good point as well now, saying that they're likely to play it overseas, use it overseas, and then the pitch might look a bit different. Also, I think the referees wear slightly different regalia overseas as well. Lisa B, you made a good point of I was always like cool with the fact that the Stormers would sometimes mimic the VP shirt, but they're not only supposed to represent VP, they're supposed to represent the 3 unions within Western Province. That's Southwestern District Eagles out in George, as well as Bookap in Wellington, and then Western Province in the City of Cape Town municipality. Yeah, so other than that, I believe we've come to the end of the episode. Thank you for watching. If you got to the end, We appreciate you. Comment down below, Kim Shelele. And until next week, in Rasi, we trust.
Thank you for listening to A Bit of an Animal. Please like, rate and subscribe wherever you see us, and join us again next week for more of the same. Until then, enjoy your rugby.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.